Today, Joe Biden gets a softball interview with Jake Tapper. Karine Jean-Pierre celebrates National Coming Out Day. And a new report shows illegal immigrants commit serious crimes at a higher rate than U.S. citizens. Who would have guessed? We've got all of that and more coming up, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, and we are joined today, once again, by Grant Stinchfield, who is the host of the new podcast, Stinchfield, which you can find on all of the platforms. Make sure that you go subscribe. Grant, thank you for being here.
It's lit. It's great.
Oh,
Stinchfield.
It is. I mean, let me just tell you, you can get all of the dirt, all of the gossip, all of the tea over at Stinchfield, but you got to go subscribe and listen.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'm not going to. Yeah,
Thank you.
That's all I'll say. Also joined, I'm so happy whenever this wonderful, beautiful woman is in studio, Carol Roth, who is, of course, the author of The War on Small Business, as well as, I just want to tease for you, Carol, got a lot of new, fun, exciting things coming up, but you have to go and sign up to make sure you get notified at carolroth.com/Glenn. And I'm going to guess that's 2 N's in Glenn.
2 N's, but I'm smart enough. Being a business person, I also did 1 N and redirected it to 2 N's just in case you can't spell.
So if you misspell it, you're fine.
I got you covered.
She'll get you anyway.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm glad you guys can be here. I want to get into the news of the day. So last night, don't know if you guys caught it, Biden gave an interview to CNN's Jake Tapper. Now, typically, this is like an unscripted, just back and forth interview, which we'll get into later. But they were discussing the possibility of a recession, which I find interesting that they're discussing the possibility of a recession as if we're not already in one. But again, we'll get to that in a second. Biden said at first that there will not be one. And then he said, well, if there is one, it's just going to be one of those slight recessions, watch.
Should the American people prepare for a recession?
No. Look, they've been saying this now. Every 6 months they say this. Every 6 months they look down the next 6 months and see what's going to happen. It hadn't happened yet. It hadn't. There's no guarantee that they're going to be. I don't think there will be a recession. If it is, it'll be a very slight recession. That is, we'll move down slightly.
Move down slightly. We've fallen off a cliff. Has anyone looked at their stock portfolio right now, whether it's a 401k or whatever you might have?
The worst part is there's a technical definition of a recession,
right,
which is 2 quarters of GDP contraction, which now we're all pretending isn't really a thing and that we're not really in a recession. So this pretend recession that we're in, you should just put that aside. And even if we eke out some growth in the 3rd quarter, which is possible, and then head into that double dip recession, the president's telling you definitely don't prepare. Now, the head of JP Morgan Chase just said, it's going to get really bad. It's going to be dire. But the president's like, don't you worry. I got you covered. Oh, and by the way, there is no inflation. Oh, and it's transitory. It's good for you. It's Putin's fault. Bread lines are a great way to meet your neighbors.
But I actually love that you say that, because that is what they do. First, they deny that it's happening. And then they're like, all right, it might happen, but if it does, it's going to be a good thing. And let me tell you why. And then when they finally admit that it is happening, they're like, no, but look. Yeah. This is a great thing for America. We're just going to totally reset our values. It's going to be great.
I paid $16 for chopped pineapple yesterday, and I didn't know it was $16. Like, I'm checking out, and I'm like, what? This is insane. But maybe even more disturbing from what Joe Biden just said is what you brought up. The fact that Jake Tapper says, if there is a recession, should people prepare? If there is a recession, what is his problem? Well, you know what, on Park Avenue, maybe there's not a recession when you're making multi-million-dollar year contracts working for a liberal rag. Mm-hmm. Maybe he doesn't experience it like the rest of us do.
And that's the problem. It is this sort of general lack of being in touch with the average American. Certainly everybody is feeling it, but if you're making millions of dollars a year being on a fancy network, well, yeah, it doesn't quite hurt you as much, but there are people who actually have to ration, who may not be able to heat their homes this winter, who may have to cut back on, the basics, food. And so for them to just kind of pretend like, oh, you're doing a great job, buddy. You know, like keep up the good economic work. The Biden boom, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you see how confused Joe Biden is, though? Like, he's...
Oh, he couldn't even finish a thought.
These are questions that you know you're going to get asked.
Yeah.
How are you not ready for this? Unless you're a dementia patient.
Right.
If you're a dementia patient, you're not going to be ready for it.
Right.
If you're out to lunch, if you're uninformed, if you don't know what's going on around you, if you live in the White House home for the elderly, you will answer questions like that.
Well, okay, so speaking of not knowing what's going on around you and being out of touch, during this interview, Jake Tapper also asked Joe Biden about polls that show Democrats would prefer a different candidate. Yes, I didn't say Republicans. Republicans obviously prefer a different candidate. Democrats even prefer a different candidate. And Joe Biden said that all that matters is that he can do the job. All right, watch.
Voters have been watching you. Democratic voters approve of the job you're doing. Democratic voters overwhelmingly like you. But one poll shows that almost 2/3 of Democratic voters want a new nominee in 2024. Ooh. And the top reason they gave was your age. So what's your message to Democrats who like you, who like what you've done, but are concerned about your age and the demands of the job?
Well, they're concerned about whether or not I can get anything done. Look what I've gotten done. Name me a president in recent history that's gotten as much done as I have in the first 2 years.
Great point.
Not a joke. May not like what I got done, but the vast majority of the American people do like what I got done. And so it's a matter of, can you do the job? And I believe I can do the job. I've been able to do the job. I've gotten more done. I got the Inflation Reduction. I got all these pieces of legislation passed. And I ran on that. I said this is what I was going to do.
Okay, so I have a theory that every time he says not a joke
all the time.
He always says it after he's lied. And he knows that he's lied, and that's his tell. Yeah, that's his tell. Is he's like, we've got the most jobs, and we're doing great. The economy is booming. Not a joke. Like, it's just
I got a great hand here. Not a joke. All in.
Not a joke. Not a joke. I mean, a lot to unpack there, that he's living in this fantasy world where he feels like he can come out in front of the American public and say, look at all I've done. And the American public doesn't say, yeah, we see it all around us when we fill up our gas tanks, when we go to the grocery store, when we do all of these things. We know what you've done, Joe, but I wouldn't be bragging about it because none of it is good.
Look at what he's done.
Yeah.
You named a few of the things. He's put our enemies on the move. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Afghanistan. He botched that and put terrorists back in there to make that the training center of the world. He opened up borders that now have crime flowing in here, fentanyl flowing in here. We have kids and young adults dying at record numbers. Not to mention the economy. We just talked about it. Crime is on the rise. This president has done more in 2 years than any other president I've ever seen to destroy a nation.
Yes. No, that is true. He's definitely done more, and he's got it all done, and it is all terrifying. And the only thing that is making people's lives better right now is that there are no mean tweets. And that's only if you didn't enjoy them, because many of us found them to be quite amusing. I do think, though, like the whole idea that he has no idea what's going on, this is not even his agenda. This is clearly somebody else, not exactly sure who is pulling the puppet strings there. It's just so horrible and mean. And so the fact that they're like, oh, it's your age, it's not your age. I mean, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are still running Berkshire Hathaway, in their 90s, killing it. Nobody's going, we really need to replace that Warren Buffett guy because he's old. No, he's super competent and he's killing it. This guy can't put a sentence together. They feel bad. His family should feel terrible for putting him in that position. And the fact that this is what we're projecting to the world, we're projecting this weakness, all of those things you talk about is them taking advantage of that weakness.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're talking about all of the things he's done. We'll give him that. Done a lot, none of it good. Another one is all of the money that they have invested in climate change, all of these green initiatives. And, if you listen to Joe Biden and take his word for it, he says that they've passed $1 billion, $1 trillion, $750 million, $1 billion.
That's the official amount. That's the official amount.
I'm very confused. Let Biden speak for himself. Watch.
We passed look, what I ran on, I said we're going to deal with energy.
Right.
And the energy problem, we're going to deal with the whole notion of global warming. We passed $368 billion worth of help, which, as the same bankers talk about, is going to bring $1.7 trillion off the sidelines in investment.
Okay, Carol, you are, of course, a former investment banker.
Recovering investment banker,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, sorry, recovering. I never knew that was like an actual official figure.
Yes, you did somewhere between trillion and quadrillion is billion, 750 million, billion, trillion, billion, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, the worst part is we're all laughing at that, but it's covering up the absolute horrible thing that they've done, which is a bunch of people who couldn't see inflation coming that actually caused it, who now are telling us we're not in a recession. Now they're going to fix the global climate, which is, by the way, broken, and it's only broken here, by the way. It's not broken in China or Venezuela or Saudi Arabia. It's just here, and they're going to give a bunch of money to companies like, credits for EVs, so that they can stop making the low-priced ones and focus on the luxury ones and raise the price by the same amount of the credit. That is phenomenal economics. It's really doing a lot for the average American. Thank you, Joe Biden.
Not to hammer away on his being a dementia patient, but he gave it away there because he called it global warming. See, they don't call it global warming anymore. That was like a couple decades ago they call it global warming. When you're a dementia patient, you remember things from a few decades ago. You don't remember things from the day. So he calls it global warming. I did a video, by the way, Stinchfield 1776. But it's got like 500,000 views on Instagram. I was at a Tesla charging station at 10 o'clock. And there's a line of cars and people sitting in their cars waiting for their car to charge. It took us, I was following somebody who had driven from Houston to Dallas and was out of it, couldn't make it home. It took us an hour to find a charging station, charge the car. I'm like, this is a nightmare. My car, I'm at the gas station in 5 minutes, less. And I'm done. And these idiots, because they don't have charging stations in their apartment complexes. So they buy the electric vehicle. Now they got to go to some supercharge station along a superhighway and wait in line to charge their vehicle because and yet California is going to go all electric vehicles? We're not prepared for that.
I mean, this is the issue here that's just glossed over, is that by continuing to divert funds from traditional sources of energy, whether it be fossil fuels or nuclear energy, that they're putting us not only at an economic risk, but at a national security risk. And this isn't something that's going to be fixed like next year. It's not like, we'll just get through the winter and we'll be okay. We're underinvesting for the future, and that's going to affect us here in the U.S. It's going to affect everywhere around the globe, and it's going to cause global unrest.
Do you know there's a real serious crisis America faces that relates to this?
Stupidity?
We have, stupidity is the crisis. Well, Joe Biden is clearly the number one national security risk we face as a nation, and that is not a joke. We have not a uranium shortage, but we are not producing uranium in the United States to power our nuclear reactors that offer up very clean energy to America, to power our nuclear aircraft carriers and our nuclear submarines. We rely on Russia and China for uranium. We have the largest deposit right here in the United States, and we don't produce an ounce. We went from being the number one producer of uranium to 0 ounces of uranium, relying on Russia and China right now when we're supposed to be, not buying anything from Russia. Well, guess where we're getting our uranium from?
Guess where the rare earth minerals come from that are used in the batteries that store the power that is, quote unquote, green and clean. I mean, nobody's talking about this. This has been a gift to China and to other nations who obviously aren't that happy with us. We've seen, having that kind of contention and being in the backseat position, what that means for us. So why would we double down on that strategy unless, of course, that was part of the intention?
Yeah. I could not agree more with both of you. I know we got to go to break, but I do have to play. I would be remiss if I didn't play the awkward part of the interview where Joe Biden appears to drop his cheat sheet of notes. Watch.
Economically and politically, we still have real problems. But look what we got done. We passed so much legislation that significantly makes a point
Let me help you with that, Mr. President.
For example,
if
the
that
American
is
Rescue
not
Plan,
the best representation of the mainstream media's relationship with the federal government and the Biden administration, I don't know what is. Jake Tapper was on it, man. He was like, "Oh my God, let me give that to you, Mr. President. I need a cover for you. I don't want anyone to know that you had a cheat sheet because you don't know the next sentence that's going to come out of your mouth. We got to help you with that, Mr. President." That was just Perfect.
That has to be the reason, because there's no way Jake Tapper is a gentleman enough to reach down and pick up a piece of paper for an old man that can't reach down himself and get it.
Truly, I really do think that that's the reason, because Jake goes, oh, crap.
Here's
I
the
feel
question.
bad for
Why
him.
did they leave that in the interview? Why didn't they go, okay, hold on. The sheet's on the ground.
Right.
We have a problem. Emergency. Woo, 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 woo.
Yeah.
This is all. Let's just roll back and take this again.
That's a great point.
It's called Operation Oust Biden.
Yeah.
And I actually believe it's underway, and it's been underway for a couple of months.
Yeah, they finally realized they
Yeah.
can't cover for him any longer for very much
They can't
longer.
keep picking up the cheat sheet
Yeah.
for Joe Biden.
Right, exactly.
Enter Gavin Newsom.
All right, we got more to come. We're off to a good start. First, I want to thank our sponsor, First Liberty. So court packing is a real thing that could happen, and it's a coup. Okay, we've got all of the usual suspects. We've got Biden, we've got Pelosi, Schumer. They are all working overtime on new radical plans to pack the Supreme Court. They're talking about it all the time. They are inserting, you hear Elizabeth Warren talking about it. This is not a conspiracy theory. This could happen, and if it does, it will be catastrophic for our court, for our entire way of life. We cannot let that happen. That is why First Liberty is asking you to join their petition. All they're asking you to do is sign your name. Join 1 million patriots who are saying no to a Supreme Court coup. Guys, this is the easiest thing I'm ever going to ask you to do. I'm not asking you to spend money. I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm just telling you to go sign your name to say no to this. You can go to supremecoup.com to sign First Liberty's letter. That is supremecoup.com. Because apparently everything has to be gay. Yesterday was National Coming Out Day.
Not
and,
me, by the way. Okay, let's just be very clear about this.
All right, everything except Grant has to be gay. And Karine Jean-Pierre shared her story. This is, of course, White House press secretary, for those of you who have forgotten. She shared her story of coming out to her, what she says was her traditional conservative family. Watch.
So today is National Coming Out Day, and so I wanted to start by sharing my own coming out story. Like so many in the LGBTQ community, coming out wasn't an easy thing to do. My family was traditional and conservative. Being gay in my family wasn't something that you mentioned out loud or celebrated. But my family, like many, many other families, grew to accept who I was. They saw that who I loved didn't change who I was as a person. It didn't change the things I liked to do, and it didn't change the goals I had for my life. The beauty of America is its freedoms and the promise that you can achieve your dreams, no matter your race, sex, country of origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. This is something we continue to strive toward and fight for, particularly as we continue to see a wave of anti-LGBTQ legislation across the country.
No, but I think she had it right when she said that the beauty of America is that none of that matters, right? We don't need to deal in identity politics. It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're Asian, if you're gay, if you're straight. It doesn't matter, because you also have the same opportunity as others. And then she just completely contradicts herself. I just don't I have friends who are gay. I don't have a problem with the gay community as a whole. I don't understand why everything has to be centered around being gay. We had Pride Month in, June? And that's their month, right? That's cool. I'm wondering, when is the heterosexual month? I'm not quite sure. It just feels like everything has to be about your sexuality these days. And it feels like you're diminishing who you are as a person when that's all you have to talk about is your sexuality and what gender you're attracted to. It's just weird to me.
I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, her being gay has nothing to do with her being the worst press secretary in American history.
Absolutely.
Nothing to do with it.
No.
I can tell you what the push for gay transgender mania is, and it's emasculating society. It's about taking men out of society and ruining the values that we look at. Strong men who will support and protect the women around them. And that doesn't mean you can't have strong women, but strong men are integral to society to succeed. And I'll never back down off of that. They certainly will, because they don't want society to succeed. They want weakness in society.
Yeah, because then you got to latch on to the teat of big daddy government when you don't have men to to protect you.
I actually loved what she said. I thought that was the most coherent thing that I've ever heard come out of her mouth. And I think, like you said, that the worst part about it was the ending, is that she talked about individuality and what makes you unique and how America is this place that sort of protects the individual, and then rolled into collectivism. And I don't think this is about, being gay or being a certain race or a certain anything. It's the issue that the people on the left, they want to play this identity politics.
Right.
They want to have this collective identity instead of celebrating you for who you are, because that's the only way they can push their very bad ideas. So instead of saying, you're you and we're going to protect your rights as an individual, well, we have to put you as part of a class. We need to find a way to make that class victimized. And whether you tell somebody that they're a victim or that they're going to do great, they're going to believe you either way. And I think it's a much better path to say, we don't care what your orientation is, we don't care what your race is, we're here to make everybody succeed and to protect your rights as an individual. And it would have been so amazing for her to end on that, and then I would have stood up and went, yes, you go, girl.
Right.
But unfortunately, I can't do that.
Well, and it's no, she didn't only just completely ruin the messaging that we here at this table would be like, yes, true, that is what America is all about. She also she just completely upended all of this and decided to demonize half of the country, of course, because she was asked about this was the LA City Council president who just recently resigned over her racist remarks. And she started talking about MAGA Republicans that celebrate racist language, and Democrats are the ones who condemn such hate speech. Watch.
Look, the president is glad to see that one of the participants in that conversation has resigned, but they all should. He believes that they all should resign. The language that was used and tolerated during that conversation was unacceptable, and it was appalling. They should all step down. And here's the difference between Democrats and MAGA Republicans. When a Democrat says something racist or anti-Semitic, we hold them. We hold Democrats accountable.
Really?
When a MAGA Republican says something racist or anti-Semitic, they are embraced by cheering crowds and become celebrated and sought after endorsements.
Okay. So did Ilhan Omar resign? I didn't catch that. Is she still in Congress?
That was what I was going to say. So being the token Jew here, I will tell you that when Ilhan Omar used language that basically was a euphemism for the destruction of Israel, amongst other things, she didn't receive any sort of censure for that, and continues to be elected. And she is certainly not the only one. There are many people on the Democratic side who've said all kinds of ridiculous things, not only about race and creed and everything else, but also from a political side. I mean, they're the ones that are divisive about everything based on this intersectionality and this collective identity.
Right.
It's like the Hunger Games, and nobody's going to be left standing.
Yeah.
So, I do radio in Los Angeles every morning.
Right.
And so this is a huge story. The things they said were the most vile things that come out of people's mouths. I've never been in a room where people have ever had conversations like this. I've been in a room where people have said racist things. You either walk out, you tell them to stop, you do what you got to do. But I've never been in a room where the conversation unfolded the way it unfolded, the vile things. She says that Democrats call people out for this. Well, as of the taping of this program, Gavin Newsom has not called for the resignation of any of them. He's the governor of that state, and he remains silent through all of this. Now, if anybody should be calling for the resignation of these three serious bigots, he should. And the last point on this is that Los Angeles City Council members, these three that were responsible for this, are the first ones to boycott cities and states that somehow they look at as racist, and they're the high and mighty, all-encompassing, we're compassionate, we're welcoming, we understand everybody, and yet this is how they talk in closed doors as they're making political deals with unions?
It's projection.
Yes.
You don't go after people like that unless you're used to that behavior. You wouldn't even think like, oh, that's a thing if it's not something that you engaged in. So they try to project it onto somebody else.
You're in Chicago. Is Chicago now going to boycott business in Los Angeles because of because of what these people said? I mean, that would be the liberal way. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Well, let's not get us started on all the issues in Chicago here. That could be like 3 new shows.
Yeah, it is. It's just really frustrating to hear. And I know we got to take a break, but to your point, Grant, we showed some of this. The particular the president who just resigned, who actually was the one to resign. We showed a couple of her tweets, her previous tweets about like George Floyd and racism is horrible, and it's just like you guys are just completely nothing you say you believe. Nothing.
Mike Bonin is a city council member. He's gay. He's white. He adopted a black child that's 2 years old. She called him the black child. The most horrible thing you could offer up for a black person. Now, Mike Bonin is a vile individual. He hates freedom. He hates gun owners. He hates everything good about America. And instead of getting angry, he started crying. He started crying. Like, why would you let a racist bigot infect your mind? You cannot let those people have power. You don't let those people infect your mind and have power over you. That's their issue, not yours. He started crying. You want to talk about weakness in America? He should get angry.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there.
But when you're part of a victim culture,
That's true.
it's the go-to strategy. How can I turn this around, make people feel bad for me, and capitalize on it? And I'm not saying, I haven't seen it, so I have no idea if it's a genuine reaction or not. But when you're used to playing the victim, that does become a response.
Yeah, they get oppression points over there on the left. All right, we got to take another quick break. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Bank on Yourself. So, do you really control your retirement money? If you've got a 401k or IRA or similar retirement plan, you maybe have not thought of it this way, but the government is actually the one who controls it. Now, Bank on Yourself is a better way to grow and protect your hard-earned money. They've never had a losing year in over 160 years. That is how dependable it is. They're going to provide guaranteed, predictable growth and retirement income. You don't need to have any guesswork. It's there. Your plan doesn't go backward when the markets tumble. Both your principal and growth are locked in, and you are the one that's in control, not the government. You're going to get access to your money for any purpose with no questions asked, and you're not going to get those penalties that the government imposes on IRAs and 401ks. You're going to get built-in inflation protection. Your money is guaranteed to grow by a larger dollar amount every year in both good times and bad. And let me tell you, we're in for some bad right now. So you got to go there. You can get a free report with all the details on how Bank on Yourself strategy adds guarantees, predictability, and control to your financial plan. That is bankonyourself.com/matters, bankonyourself.com/matters. Last year, you may recall, mainstream media pushed a narrative that Border Patrol agents were whipping Haitian migrants. That turned out to be completely false. I'm sorry. I love this picture so much with their takeout. Takeout boxes in the bags. They're just like hoarding food and trying to go back across so that they can just eat all of the food that we've provided them. An email obtained by the Heritage Foundation reveals that DHS Secretary Mayorkas knew the narrative to be untrue, but did not refute it at a press conference 2.5 hours later. Instead, of course, called the photos horrifying. The email to Mayorkas reads, the photographer behind images depicting Border Patrol agents on horseback told KTSM things aren't exactly what they seem when it comes to the photos. The photos caused outrage because from certain angles, it appears to show Border Patrol whipping migrants, but photographer Paul Ratchey said he and his colleagues never saw agents whipping anyone. That's not even the end of the story, because they were still punished. Like, the White House actually said, okay, no, that's not what ended up being true, but we're still going to reprimand you. It's just so bizarre. Again, like to your point, they live in this world where oppression is a good thing. And so we have to constantly look for ways that you are oppressed and, harmed by the man in order to gain, I don't know, admiration?
I don't know, but there are no consequences. I mean, that's the problem, is that we have all of these people who have all of the power to put a narrative out there, to hurt people's careers, to disrupt our entire lives, and they have absolutely no consequences. He knew it to be false. If you were a company and you did that, you'd be sued for fraud.
Right.
So, like, what's our recourse here? We need to focus on how we can bring back some recourse, or you're going to continue to have that moral hazard where people do things and they bear no risk.
This is a great example of liberals, radicals willing to lie to get their way no matter what. You have so many issues at play here. This was about a war on cops, and when that happened, the war on cops was at the height of war on cops. They hate that we want closed borders, so they villainize The Border Patrol. I was sent a patch by a Border Patrol agent that says the Welcome Patrol. This is what they're handing out to each other because that's what they feel like they've been relegated to as a welcome patrol. I mean, you're not a nation unless you have secure borders. To lie, to ruin the lives of those men that are literally putting their lives on the line every day is despicable. And the fact that he knew about it, makes it so low. I can't imagine any situation that I would be in where I would be okay with something like that.
No, and they've done an absolute 180 as well. You know, that they were all okay with this, and this wasn't an issue until the migrants started showing up in Chicago and New York and, you know, Martha's Vineyard, and then all of a sudden it became a crisis.
Right.
And the narrative gets completely flipped. And unfortunately, the corporate press and the useful idiots don't do anything to go, oh, you know, maybe we didn't really look at it because it didn't affect us and go, my bad, mea culpa. Nope, they're just going to keep charging with that same, you know, we have an agenda and we're going to find a way to put this into our narrative.
Do you remember, I think it was a few weeks ago on this show, I said the number one city we should be sending migrants to is Aspen, Colorado. And now Aspen is preparing to take migrants in case we send them to Aspen.
It's so hard to get there, though.
They're
It's so
going
hard
there.
to get there. How are they getting there? By private jets?
We're in Texas. We can find ways. Governor Abbott can put them on a bus to Aspen.
Someone watches this show in Aspen and alerted them to Grant's plan.
Be ready for them.
So on this topic, there was a new report that came out from the Center of Immigration Studies that shows that illegal immigrants in Texas, where I'm sure you guys are going to find this shocking, that all of these strangers that we didn't vet and let into our country and decided to enter this country by breaking our laws to begin with, okay, they were convicted of crimes such as homicide, sexual assault, and kidnapping at higher rates than the state average. I, for one, am shocked that these people don't respect our laws. I thought for sure once they entered illegally and completely disregarded our laws, that then they would start actually respecting and caring. So I'm shocked. I want to let you listen to Sean Kennedy, who is the lead researcher of this report, speaking to Tucker Carlson. Watch.
We found out that the data was being absolutely misrepresented. They claimed that native-born Americans could be compared apples to illegal immigrants, except for Texas doesn't collect data on native-born Americans. That's some other category, which includes unidentified illegal immigrants. And every year, especially in serious crime categories, Texas keeps finding more illegals in its prisons that weren't identified initially upon arrest. So there's more and more illegals amongst the convicted felons in Texas when Texas goes back and checks on people's immigration status.
Shocked.
So I can explain why this happens in
Please.
Texas. Your most liberal cities are obviously the big ones, Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. They don't allow officers to ask your immigration status when you pull somebody over. So you arrest them, and then you put them in jail, county jail, and wait. If you're lucky, many of these cities are being same situation as New York and Chicago, being let out right away. But they don't know their immigration status because they didn't ask their immigration status, because that would be too mean and evil to ask somebody if you're here illegally.
That's xenophobic.
Yes, of course.
It's crazy because, like, I feel like I can't do anything. Like, I can't go and, you know, get a cup of cocoa without, like, identifying who I am and all the different groups that I belong to. But it's something that's actually relevant where you're being arrested, that maybe that might be important information. And to your point, Sarah, you know, you have to look at the incentives and the outcomes. If you have people who are looking to cross the border and some group goes, well, we're not supposed to do that. Then the other one goes, well, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. The I don't care, we're going to do it anyway people are going to probably say that about the next, you know, kind of grouping of rules. So.
Right. Grant, before we go, we played a clip of Tucker Carlson there.
Yep.
You've been in the news recently, having to do with Tucker Carlson.
Yep.
Would you care to?
So of course, my first podcast, Stinchfield, on all the platforms, was about why I got canceled at Newsmax. At least why I believe I got canceled at Newsmax. And the first and foremost reason in my mind was I refused gently to attack Tucker Carlson on a nightly basis. He was my direct competition at 8 o'clock, but he's a beast. He was doing 3 million people a night, and he's great, and I'm doing 300,000. Why would I want to beat up the man that I actually believe is the number 2 leader of the Republican Party next to President Trump? I actually believe that Tucker Carlson has more power than any other Republican in this country other than President Trump. Why would I attack that man when we need unified voices? I'm on the Blaze today. Real America's Voice, Newsmax, Fox News. I don't care. We're fighting a bigger fight than all of this. We don't need to fight with each other. And so Newsmax wanted me to go down that road. There was issues about Ukraine. I started asking questions about Ukraine. They didn't like that. But I'm always grateful to my opportunity at Newsmax. But there's certain things that I just couldn't do, and I think I was inconvenient and uncomfortable for them. And so they found somebody else to do it, and that's their prerogative.
It is fascinating because, I think that the left does a great job of creating this division themselves. Why would we need to add to it? I feel like people are always shocked when I have you on, I have people from the Daily Wire on. When Jeremy's Razors launched, I had him on to talk about it. I'm like, we're all on the same team. We're not the Democrats. We all actually believe in these ideals. We all actually believe in things like the Constitution and our freedoms and our liberties, and we're all fighting the same battle for our kids. Like, why would I try to pick a fight with these people? It just doesn't make any sense.
Go ahead.
I was just saying a core principle is that you let people speak their minds and that you take what works for you and you say, maybe this doesn't work for you. I'm separating the art from the artist. And I just want to congratulate you. I mean, that is not an easy thing to do. I don't know if people really realize, you have a pretty amazing thing that people would kill for, and to be able to say that's not consistent with my values, and if that's going to cost me my job, I'm going to find another way. I just want to personally say that's pretty amazing.
To be honest, at the time, I didn't know it would cost me my job. Honestly, I didn't know, but I could tell you this.
You were willing to take that risk.
Yeah. In the beginning, I found a couple little things I disagree with. We could find things we disagree with. We could find things we disagree with, and I'd say, okay, just to keep them happy. And then that wasn't good enough for them. So I said, well, I'm not doing it. So they would bring Dick Morris on, and Dick Morris would attack him. So, okay, I finally said, I can't do it anymore. Yeah. My stomach is churning. Before you go on air, that you don't even want to touch this subject. I can't do it. And then when I asked the question about why are we spending so much money in Ukraine and shouldn't we have checks and balances to a congressman, they said that is not the network position. And I said, the show's called Stinchfield. I didn't know there's a network position.
Right.
And so, I'm a strong person. You know me for a long time. I'm strong. I can go make money. I'm a small business owner. I've bought and sold businesses. I can go hustle cash if I have to go hustle cash.
But it's rare. Like, it's not rare to you. It's not rare to you. It's not rare to me. But in the sphere, it is rare to have that authenticity.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Really, truly. Great job, my friend.
Thank you.
And make sure that you check out Stinchfield wherever you get your podcasts. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. According to a witness in the Durham investigation, the Obama FBI offered $1 million to Christopher Steele if he could provide any evidence that the Steele dossier was real. Obviously, we know how that worked. Steele was unable to back up his claims. But as a reminder, Steele was a Hillary Clinton opposition researcher, former British spy. And this revelation came during John Durham's false statements trial against Steele's main dossier source. This is Igor Danchenko. An FBI analyst also testified Danchenko never provided corroboration for the dossier's allegations, as well as an FBI analyst who also testified that other U.S. intelligence agencies looked into the dossier's claims and none could confirm the specific claims in the dossier. But despite all of this, the FBI still authorized the FISA warrants on Trump's campaign. Many of these allegations that came up have already been debunked, as you guys all know, such as the Trump campaign was colluding with Russia. Although if you watch MSNBC, they're probably still going to tell you that there was collusion because they're giant idiots. The Justice Department admitted in 2020 that the FISA warrants to surveil Carter Page did not meet the necessary legal threshold and never should have been issued. It's almost like the FBI has been operating this entire time as just this political wing of the government trying to quash its political opposition. I don't know, but that's a conspiracy theory. So
you think? I mean, if this was any other time, the FBI would be done. It would be over. It would be shut down. Think about what the FBI offered. $1 million to however you can get it, come up with evidence that will put President Trump or soon to be President Trump away for life. Whatever you can do. They paid for lies, or were willing to pay for lies, $1 million. That should shut that agency down for good. And have you seen any of the mainstream media outlets really cover the story at all?
No.
This is the John Durham trial. It's the second trial, I guess, of this investigation, which is one of the most important of our time, and it gets no coverage.
I just want to know who Steele's agent is, because that's some pretty juicy information if it actually were real, which we know that it's not. But if it were, to only offer $1 million for that, that's like a cheapskate deal. I feel like he should have gone for way more than that. The fact that he was willing to do it for that says a lot about what value everybody puts on our Constitution and our country. I mean, that's pretty sad.
Yeah, well, you know, it's fascinating. Was it Ted Cruz who I think he made comments like defund the FBI or whatever he said, you know, shut it down, and mainstream media tried to go after him as if that was supposed to be like controversial.
Right.
I'm like, yes, I don't see where the error was in what he said. Yes, defund the FBI. Why would we want to fund an agency that basically their entire goal, I mean, they're doing this, okay, they're arresting pro-life activists who are literally showing up to abortion clinics and praying outside, and they're getting arrested. Their homes are getting raided. They're sometimes in certain circumstances providing no warrants to the family whenever they show up and start raiding their house. Their kids are crying. They're showing up at Mar-a-Lago trying to raid President Trump. I mean, it's like,
and we still don't know the motive for the Vegas shooting.
Right.
But like the things that they're supposed to be doing, like how many years have passed now, and we still don't have any information on this guy.
Yes, and a lesser point, because that's a great point, but a lesser point, how about all the firebombing for the crisis pregnancy centers? We have no leads on that, but we're going to arrest a bunch of pro-life activists who dare pray outside abortion clinics.
There's a small story, or it's really a big story, maybe the greatest heist in American history, $86 million, I believe, that the FBI stole from a vault company in Beverly Hills, California.
Yes.
1,400 vaults. They got a warrant to go search this company that was accused of money laundering, but they took the contents of 1,400 vaults, which were safe deposit boxes, which were private customers. These customers had to fight to get it back. And what happens? Most customers say, you know what, it's going to cost me more to fight to get it back than it is worth the Rolex that was in the safe deposit box.
That second biggest heist, the biggest one was COVID and the shutting down of the economy and all of the trillions of dollars that were transferred from Main Street to Wall Street. So that's the second biggest heist.
I just want to say that people need to understand that, yes, I'm pro-law enforcement, but beyond that, I'm pro-law and order.
Yes.
It's a better term than pro-law enforcement.
Exactly.
So I want law and order. If you're a bad cop, I want you out.
Exactly.
And these FBI's, cops and agents that are acting bad, they need to go. Just like I don't say I'm pro-business.
Right.
I'm pro-free markets.
Yeah.
Not pro-business, pro-free markets.
It's a systemic issue.
Yeah.
That's the
Amen.
fundamental issue.
All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. No, that's great. Leftist journalist David Levitt called CPS on Tina Ramirez, a Virginia Senate candidate, for tweeting, oh gosh, this is bad, only women can be pregnant, and teaching her daughter to support Columbus Day. Ramirez tweeted, I teach my daughter real American history. I refuse to join the radical left's campaign to erase history. Levitt responded with, can someone please call child care services on Tina Ramirez, who's teaching her child to be a racist? And he did follow up this tweet with screenshots of him actually calling CPS, talking about how they have a 10-plus minute hold. They're experiencing high call volumes with 14 callers ahead of me. This is unacceptable. How many people try to report child abuse and hang up? How many children will continue to be abused? Well, probably a lot if a bunch of like you are going on trying to report child abuse when there is no child abuse and not allowing a parent to just raise her child in the way that she sees fit and teach her actual American history. But I don't know, maybe that's just me.
I got nothing after that.
Well, I just have some context because I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years ago that there was a guy who was very angry that he couldn't get his toothbrush from Target, his electronic, like Sonicare type of toothbrush from Target, because, you know, it was a floor model, and so it said, like, you know, 1 cent, because obviously you couldn't buy it, and had a fit and got mad at the manager, Target Tory, who we all love and did a GoFundMe for. David Levitt is the same man.
That was him?
The same man. So I'm just bringing this all together for you. He has a massive following. He says some interesting things, but I think he might have some issues
Mental
because
issues.
I'm not a doctor, I'm not a diagnosed, but like this isn't the behavior of somebody who acts rationally.
To your point, I did see, I'm trying to pull it up, I don't have time. I did see, I think one of his follow-up tweets was like about his therapist. I was like, yes, go see your therapist.
Please,
you need to go see your therapist.
Yes. Take care of
all
yourself.
Of us, please.
Take care of yourself,
yes.
David.
Okay,
yes.
Make sure you go to carolroth.com/Glenn and check out Stinchfield wherever podcasts are located.